Right now, you may be sitting in the dim light of your room, feeling a strange, persistent grit behind your eyelids and a restless heaviness in your chest. Perhaps your day was filled with the usual motion. Yet underneath it all, you have been carrying the quiet, nagging sense that you have left something undone, something jagged, or something that needs to be scrubbed clean before you can truly call yourself settled. It is a peculiar kind of fatigue, dear friend. It is not just the exhaustion of the body. It is the exhaustion of the mind that keeps replaying the same moments of error, the same sharp edges of your past, hoping that if you just keep turning them over, if you just keep grinding them against your own conscience, you might finally emerge smooth, polished, and acceptable. The air around you is cool, and the house has grown quiet, but your mind is still pacing the bank of a stream, holding a stone that feels too rough to bear. You are not failing because you feel this way. You are not broken because your thoughts refuse to lay down their tools. In fact, what you are feeling is a very human attempt to keep yourself safe, and though the method has grown painful, the intention is born from a desire for wholeness. Tonight, we are going to explore a different way to understand that sharpness you carry. We will not be forcing your mind to go empty. We will not be demanding that you silence the internal voice that insists you must be different than you are. Instead, we will learn how to put down the sand. We will learn how to stop the friction. There is a paradox at the heart of this work. We believe that we must be the ones to polish our own lives, that we must be the ones to smooth out the rough patches of our history through constant worry and self-examination. But what if the peace you crave is not something you create through effort? What if the peace is something you allow through surrender? The stone does not become smooth because it grinds itself against the earth. It becomes smooth because it yields to the movement of the water. Maybe you have felt this, the way your grip tightens when you think of a past mistake. You tell yourself that if you just worry about it one more time, if you just feel the sting of it deeply enough, you will have paid your debt to the past. But that is the second arrow of suffering. The first pain is what happened. That is the reality of the experience. But the second pain, the one that keeps you awake, is the belief that you must continue to suffer over it to be redeemed. The truth, however, is that your regret is not a cleaning agent. It is just another weight in your pack. If it feels right, take a slow breath. Let the weight of your day begin to shift. You do not have to hold on to your plans, your regrets, or the shape of your tomorrow while you are here. There is nothing to prove to me, and there is nothing to prove to yourself. You are here to learn how to rest, and in this space, you are invited to let the stone in your hand go. You are safe enough to soften. You are safe enough to admit that you do not know how to fix everything, and more importantly, that you do not have to. When we try to solve our entire lives at night, we are only asking the mind to do a job it was never meant to finish. The mind is a wonderful tool for planning, for building, and for remembering, but it is a very poor tool for healing. Healing, real healing, happens in the quiet places, in the spaces between thoughts, and in the moments when we stop trying to dictate the outcome of our own evolution. You are not a piece of granite meant to be conquered. You are a living thing, changing and shifting with every season. Maybe you are wondering if letting go means losing your sense of responsibility. You might fear that if you stop grinding against your mistakes, you will become careless or forgotten. But notice the paradox. When you stop obsessing over the past, you finally have the energy to show up for the present. When you stop trying to fix the stone, you finally see the river that has been waiting to carry it. This is not about forgetting. This is about allowing the natural movement of life to do the work that you have been exhausting yourself trying to perform. In a moment, we will look at a story of a monk who spent his years in exactly this way, trying to fight the texture of his own nature. But for now, just notice the rhythm of your own breath. You are sitting in the quiet, and the world is continuing to turn without your constant intervention. You can feel the weight of your body pressing into the support beneath you, and you can notice the way the air moves in and out of your lungs without you having to guide it. This is your first lesson in trust. Your body knows how to breathe, and life knows how to flow. You have spent so much time holding your thoughts in a tight, protective circle. You have guarded them, revisited them, and polished them with your attention. thinking that they were precious artifacts that defined your worth. But what if they are just stones you picked up along the way? What if some of them were sharp, and some of them were heavy, and some of them have simply outlived their usefulness? You do not have to carry them into your sleep. You do not have to carry them into the dark. There is a gentleness available to you tonight that does not ask for perfection. It only asks for your willingness to pause. It only asks for the honesty to admit that you are tired of the grinding. If your mind wanders, let it wander. If you find yourself drifting back to the stories you usually tell, do not scold yourself. That is just another form of grinding. Just notice the thought, acknowledge the pattern, and bring your awareness back to the feeling of the breath moving through you. You are here, and that is enough. You have arrived at a place where the work of the day can be set aside. You do not need to be any other version of yourself than the one who is currently listening to these words. The version of you that worries, the version of you that hopes, the version of you that regrets, they are all welcome here. We will not be discarding them. We will be placing them down, one by one, like stones on a bank. Let the muscles in your shoulders begin to unclench. Let your jaw lose its tension. Imagine that the day is a heavy coat you have been wearing, and that you are finally stepping out of it, letting it pool on the floor behind you. You are becoming lighter. You are becoming more fluid. You are moving away from the need to manage your own story and toward the reality of simply being a part of the world. There is a deep, quiet resonance in the truth that you are not the master of your own shaping. We like to think we are. We like to think we can craft our character through sheer force of will, through enough hours of self-reflection, through enough nights of losing sleep. But life is a much more patient teacher than that. It uses time, it uses experience, and it uses the current of the present moment to do the work. And the work is always happening, whether you are watching it or not. So, let the effort of being yourself drop away for a while. Let the project of you go to sleep. You do not need to be the architect, the builder, or the stone polisher tonight. You only need to be the one who rests. The darkness is soft and it is holding you. It is waiting for you to stop your work, to breathe into the stillness, and to listen to the sound of the river that is already carrying you home. High in the northern reaches of the valley, where the mountain air thins and the cedar trees grow twisted by the relentless wind, there lived a man named Soren. He was a stonecutter by trade, though his hands had long ago lost the steady grace of his youth. For decades, Soren had dedicated his life to a single, impossible task. He believed that if he could find the most jagged, irregular boulder in the high pass and grind it against the mountain grit until it became perfectly smooth, he would finally earn a quiet mind. It was his obsession. Every morning, before the first light touched the peaks, he would emerge from his small cabin, a leather apron strapped to his waist, carrying a heavy pouch of fine, sharp sand. He had found a stone years ago, buried deep in a shale bank. It was dark, dense, and remarkably ugly. It had deep, cruel gouges and edges so sharp they could cut leather. Soren believed that this stone was a reflection of his own inner history, a physical manifestation of every regret, every harsh word spoken in anger, and every failure he had ever tucked away in the corners of his heart. He convinced himself that if he could just apply enough friction, if he could just spend enough hours rubbing the sand against those jagged ridges, he would eventually reveal the polished, flawless jewel he was certain lay hidden beneath the grime. He was not just shaping a rock, he was trying to erase the evidence of his own imperfection. The mountain pass was a place of profound, echoing silence. The only sounds were the whistling wind through the needles and the dry, rhythmic rasp of Soren's labor. Scritch, scritch, scritch. It was the sound of a man trying to convince himself that effort is the same thing as resolution. He would sit for hours, his knuckles raw and white, moving the dampened sand in small, tight circles over the stone. He didn't look at the sky. He didn't watch the eagles circling the thermals. He didn't listen to the way the mountain stream bubbled over the rocks just a few hundred yards away. His entire world had shrunk to the size of the stone in his lap. One afternoon, a traveler appeared on the path. He was an elderly man, dressed in a robe the color of faded slate, carrying nothing but a bamboo staff and a small empty wicker basket. He moved with a peculiar, unhurried lightness, as if he were walking on the wind itself. He stopped when he reached the plateau where Soren worked. He stood for a long time watching the stonecutter. He watched the way Soren's shoulders were hunched toward his ears. He watched the way his brow was furrowed, not in concentration, but in a kind of desperate, quiet pain. Soren did not notice him for a long time. He was too busy battling the stubborn, unyielding ridge of the stone. When Soren finally looked up, his eyes were bloodshot and tired. He saw the elder standing there, watching him with a gaze that felt strangely empty, yet full of warmth. Soren felt a flash of irritation. He didn't want to be watched. He didn't want to be perceived in his state of fraying intensity. He grunted, wiped his sweating forehead with the back of a calloused hand, and turned back to his rock. But the elder did not move. He stepped closer, his soft sandals making no sound on the gravel. He knelt down, not beside Soren, but in front of him. He reached out and touched the very edge of the stone Soren had been polishing for hours. The stone was hot. It was vibrating with the heat of the friction. The elder felt the heat, retracted his hand, and looked at Soren. He didn't ask what he was doing. He didn't offer advice on the quality of the sand. He simply asked, "How does the stone feel when you stop?" Soren frowned. It was a strange question. He didn't stop. He hadn't stopped in years. He felt a sudden, sharp ache in his chest, an ache that had nothing to do with the physical labor and everything to do with the question itself. He realized then, with a sinking feeling, that he had no idea. He only knew the feeling of the rubbing. He only knew the sensation of the resistance. The elder reached into his wicker basket and pulled out a small, smooth river stone. It was not polished by hand. It was not a jewel. It was just a common, gray, rounded rock, the kind you might find in 1,000 stream beds across the world. He placed it in Soren's hand. It was cool. It was heavy. It was undeniably smooth. It had a weight that felt like an invitation. The elder then gestured toward the distant, unseen sound of the mountain stream. He didn't speak another word. He stood up, bowed slightly, and continued on his way, disappearing into the mist of the high pass as if he were a ghost. Soren sat there for a long time, the cool stone resting in his open palm. He felt the weight of it, the simple, honest density of it. He looked down at the jagged rock in his lap, the one he had spent years trying to transform through his own bitter friction. He realized, in a flash of clarity that felt like a sudden shift in the mountain air, that he had been working against the very nature of the stone. He had been trying to impose his will upon something that required only time and a different kind of movement. He stood up, his legs stiff and aching. He walked toward the sound of the water. He didn't know what he was doing, or why he felt this sudden, quiet urge to walk away from his task. He moved past the stunted cedars, through the patches of stubborn, high-altitude moss until he reached the banks of a narrow, rushing stream. The water was icy and clear, tumbling over millions of small, rounded stones, all of them polished by the relentless, patient energy of the current. It was a beautiful, chaotic, singing place. The stream didn't care about the history of the rocks. It didn't care about their jagged edges. It didn't judge them for their flaws. It simply embraced them, held them in its cold, swirling grip, and carried them forward. Soren stood at the edge of the water. He looked at the jagged stone he had carried from the high pass, the one that had held his history, his grief, and his self-judgment for so many years. He felt the roughness of it against his skin, the sharp ridges that had caused him so much imagined shame. And then, without another thought, he let it go. He dropped the stone into the center of the deepest, fastest part of the stream. He watched it vanish beneath the churning white foam. He didn't wait to see where it landed. He didn't worry about whether it would be smooth by tomorrow. He simply turned around and walked back toward his cabin, his hands empty, his apron stained with dust, and his shoulders, for the first time in his life, beginning to sag with the weight of an approaching, long overdue peace. He didn't know how long it would take for the stream to do its work. He didn't know if he would ever see that stone again. He only knew that he was no longer the one who had to do the grinding. The mountain, the water, and the passage of time, these were things he could finally trust. He sat outside his cabin as the sun began to dip behind the peaks, casting long, purple shadows across the valley floor. He breathed in the cold, thin air, and for the first time, the grit he had felt for so many years was gone. He realized that the peace he had been hunting was not in the polishing of the rock. It was in the ability to walk away from the stream and leave the work to the water. There is a lesson here that is quiet, almost hidden in the rush of the story. The monk did not have to make the stone smooth. The mountain stream, with its relentless, patient energy, was already doing the work that Soren had tried to steal for himself. You have been carrying your own heavy, jagged stones for a long time. You have been sitting on the bank, rubbing your hands raw, trying to force your life into a shape that feels acceptable, all the while ignoring the river of your own existence that has been moving all along. Maybe you are still sitting there, on the bank of your own exhaustion, holding a stone that you are trying to change. You feel that if you stop, if you put down the sand, you will somehow be less than you are, or that the jagged parts of your story will remain forever, a testament to your failure. But listen to the sound of the wind and think of the stream. You are not a static object. You are a life in motion. The things you have been trying to scrub away are not defects. They are the texture of your crossing. They are the evidence that you have been alive, and they are already being shaped by the very experience of living. You do not need to be the one who polishes. You do not need to be the one who corrects. You do not need to be the one who makes sure every edge is rounded and every mistake is forgotten. That work is too heavy for a human heart. That work is what exhausts the spirit and keeps the mind running in circles at night, looking for a resolution that can never be found through friction. Tonight, as you prepare to rest, consider the possibility that you can place your own stone in the water, and then you can simply stop. You can let the current have its way. You can let the day end, and you can let the night hold you without any need for your own intervention. The stream is always moving. The world is always changing. And you, in the midst of it all, are perfectly allowed to be still. You are allowed to stop your labor. You are allowed to let the stones fall where they may. And you are allowed to trust that the river knows exactly how to handle the shape of your soul. As you listen to these words, feel your own hands letting go of the imaginary sand you have been clutching for so long. Feel the tension in your wrists melting into the dark, and feel the space in your chest opening up, as if it were finally breathing for the first time in years. You are not a project. You are a part of the world, and the world is taking care of you, even in your sleep. The stonecutter in our story was not a cruel man. He was simply someone who had mistaken the nature of his own history for a mistake that required immediate correction. He spent years in the high pass, convinced that his roughness was a problem to be solved through sheer physical willpower. You might recognize this impulse in your own life. It is that persistent, quiet voice that tells you that if you could just find the right angle of self-analysis, if you could just rub your memories against the sandpaper of your own regret enough times, you would finally emerge as a person who no longer feels the sharp edges of the past. It is an exhausting way to exist. It turns your own mind into a factory of friction. This story does not suggest that you should stop caring about your life, or that you should ignore the parts of your history that feel difficult. It does not ask you to become indifferent or cold. Instead, it points toward a much simpler realization. The suffering Soren endured was not caused by the stone itself. The stone was just a piece of mountain, formed by geological time and the forces of the earth. The suffering was created by the way Soren approached it. He believed that he was the only one who could grant the stone its value, and he believed that value was defined by smoothness. By insisting that the stone had to be something other than what it was, he effectively went to war with reality. In the language of the old teachers, we often speak of the gap between what we want and what is. We live in this gap. We spend our energy trying to bridge it with the tools of judgment. We look at a moment of pain from our past, a harsh word we said, a missed opportunity, a time when we felt exposed, and we refuse to let that moment stay in the past. We bring it into the present. We set it on the workbench of our mind. We take up the sand of self-criticism. We begin to grind, and in that grinding, we are not healing the past. We are manufacturing a new layer of suffering right here in the present tense. The Buddhist perspective is not about erasing your history. It is about changing how you hold it. Think of the river that eventually smoothed the stone. That water did not hold an opinion about the rock. It did not judge the rock for being jagged. It did not stand on the bank and complain about the sharp edges. It simply moved around the stone, over the stone, and through the stone with a patience that spans centuries. It allowed the rock to be exactly as it was, and in that allowing, the rock was transformed. That is the essence of what it means to be mindful. It is the ability to let your experience exist without immediately trying to change it, suppress it, or scrub it clean. You have probably noticed that when you try to force your mind into a state of peace, the mind tends to resist. It is like trying to hold water in a clenched fist. The harder you squeeze, the faster it slips through your fingers. When we try to force our thoughts to settle, we are actually adding more tension to the system. We are creating a secondary layer of pressure. We tell ourselves, I should not be thinking this, or I should be more enlightened than this. That judgment is the sand on the stone. It is the friction that keeps the heat alive. It is the reason you feel so tired when you try to rest. The teaching here is about the difference between pain and suffering. Pain is inevitable. It is a part of being human. It is the sting of a mistake, the heaviness of loss, the vulnerability of loving things that change. You cannot escape the fact of these experiences, but suffering is something else entirely. Suffering is the story we tell ourselves about the pain. It is the narrative that says, this should not have happened, or I am a bad person because I feel this way, or I must be different if I want to be safe. When you subtract that narrative, when you stop adding the layers of your own critique to the experience itself, you are left with only the raw feeling. And surprisingly, raw feeling is much easier to hold than the elaborate structure of your own guilt. You do not have to be the one who smooths your own edges. Your life is already doing that work for you. Every day, the events of your life move through you like the current of that mountain stream. Some days are turbulent, full of rushing noise and white water. Other days are quiet, moving with a slow, steady grace. You do not have to do anything to make this movement happen. You only have to stay in the boat. You only have to remain present as the days carry you forward. When you try to step out of the boat to polish the rocks on the bank, you are only delaying your own journey. Perhaps tonight you can consider that the roughness you feel in your life is not a sign of your failure. It is the evidence of your growth. It is the texture of your journey. If you were a perfectly smooth stone, you would have no character. You would have no depth. You would have no history. But you are not a static object. You are a living, breathing being who is still being shaped by the elements. You are allowed to have edges. You are allowed to have parts of your life that still feel unpolished. You do not need to explain these things, and you certainly do not need to apologize for them. When we hold on to the need to be perfect, we are really just holding on to the fear of being seen. We believe that if we show our jagged edges, we will be rejected. But the mountain stream does not reject the rocks. The earth does not reject the mountains. The universe does not reject the messiness of being human. If you can move toward a place of kindness for yourself, you will see that the people in your life are also dealing with their own jagged stones. They are not looking for you to be smooth. They are looking for you to be present, to be real, and to be honest about the journey you are taking. Consider the object you might be holding in your mind right now. Maybe it is a memory of a conversation you had earlier today, or a long-standing regret that you keep polishing in the dark. Imagine that memory as a rough gray stone. You have spent hours, days, perhaps years, rubbing your attention against it. You think you are cleaning it, but you are only making your own hands bleed. What would happen if you simply set that stone down on the table of your awareness? You don't have to throw it away. You don't have to pretend it isn't there. You just have to stop the friction. You just have to stop moving your hands. When you stop the friction, the heat begins to dissipate. The stone returns to its natural temperature. You can look at it clearly, without the haze of your own agitation. You might even see that the stone is not as ugly as you thought. It has lines, it has history, and it has a place in the landscape of your life. It is not something to be scrubbed away. It is something to be acknowledged and then allowed to rest. This is the first step toward a different kind of healing. A healing that does not require you to fix, but only to witness. If you find yourself worrying about the future, about how you will handle the coming days, or about how you will maintain this sense of calm when the noise returns, notice that this too is a form of friction. You are trying to polish a stone that has not yet entered the stream. You are trying to prepare for the current by holding your breath. But the current will be there regardless of your preparation. and you will be there too. You have survived every day of your life up to this point. You have navigated every bend in the river. You have met every challenge with the tools you had at the time. You can trust that you will have what you need for tomorrow, not because you have practiced, but because you are capable of being present when the time arrives. You are doing enough simply by being willing to look at the stones you carry. You are doing enough by breathing through the tightness in your chest. You are doing enough by choosing to set the sand aside, even for a few minutes of the night. This is not laziness. This is the deepest kind of work. It is the work of turning your attention inward and offering yourself the same grace you would offer a friend who was walking the same difficult path. If you saw someone else sitting by the stream, rubbing their hands raw on a jagged rock, you would not tell them to keep going. You would not tell them that their rock was not good enough. You would tell them to stop. You would tell them to wash their hands. You would tell them to look at the sky. Can you offer that same compassion to yourself tonight? Can you treat your own heart with the gentleness you would show to another? You have been your own harshest judge for a long time, but tonight, the judge is off duty. The workbench is closed. The sand has been returned to the earth. There is only the quiet of the room, the rhythm of your breath, and the vast, unfolding mystery of the night. You are not meant to be a polished jewel. You are meant to be a living, breathing part of this world, with all your roughness, all your history, and all your beautiful human complexity. Keep listening, dear friend, because in the next part of our journey, we will see how another traveler learned to work with the materials of their life in a way that didn't require the loss of their own peace. We will see how a different set of hands, a different set of tools, and a different perspective can turn even the most tangled, frayed history into something that feels like a home. But for now, just let the words sink into the silence. Let the lesson soften your grip. You are doing well. You are safe in this space of slowing down. Everything you have been carrying can be set down for now, and the river of your own life will continue to flow, steady and sure, without you needing to lift a single finger to steer it. If you are ready, let us step away from the workbench of the mind. You have been holding that stone, that heavy, jagged memory of who you were or what you failed to do, for so long that you have forgotten what it feels like to have empty hands. There is no need to discard it forever. You do not need to throw your past into the abyss. You simply need to set it down, just for this night, and see if the river can carry it instead of you. If it feels right, take a breath that starts deep in your belly, and as you exhale, imagine you are opening your fingers. Let the invisible sand fall away. Let the grit of your self-critique settle into the earth. You might notice that as you release the grip, your mind immediately tries to reach out and grab the stone again. This is not a failure. It is simply the habit of your protection. Your mind believes that if you are not holding on to the worry, you are not prepared for the world. You can acknowledge that thought without obeying it. You can see it like a cloud drifting over the high pass, appearing and then moving on. You do not have to fight the thought. You do not have to argue with it. You only have to watch it pass by, and then return your attention to the feeling of your own breath, which is the rhythm of the mountain itself. Perhaps there is one particular concern that has been pacing the hallway of your mind all evening. It might be a conversation you fear, a mistake you regret, or a feeling of being behind in the currents of your own life. Bring this concern into your awareness, not with the intent to solve it, but with the intent to witness it. Look at it clearly. Is it sharp? Is it heavy? Does it have a color? Give it a shape in your mind, like a rough, gray stone pulled from the deep shale. You are not meant to polish this stone tonight. You are not meant to make it something other than what it is. Imagine yourself standing on the bank of that narrow, rushing stream we spoke of earlier. The water is clear, cold, and constant. It is moving with a power that you do not need to generate. It is the power of the natural world, the power of time, and the power of the present moment. Take that gray, jagged stone of your worry and hold it in your palm. Feel the weight of it. Feel the texture of the edges you have been trying to smooth for so long. Now, slowly, gently, imagine yourself opening your hand. Let the stone fall into the center of the water. Watch it splash, watch the ripples widen, and watch it settle into the deep, churning bed of the stream. Do not worry about where it goes. Do not worry about whether it will be smooth by tomorrow. The water will do its work, and the river does not require your supervision. As the stone sinks into the dark, churning depths, feel the sudden, hollow lightness in your hand. Feel the way your palm tingles, freed from the burden of the stone. This is what it means to stop the friction. You are not abandoning your life. You are simply stepping out of the stream so that you can watch the current do the work it was always meant to do. If your mind rushes to retrieve the stone, do not be alarmed. The mind is a restless builder. It may immediately try to reach back into the water, to grab the rock and put it back on the bench to be worked on. If you notice this happening, simply smile at your own persistence. You are human, and you have been trained to carry burdens for a very long time. You can choose again and again to release the grip. You can choose again and again to leave the stone in the water. Each time you let go, you are creating a small space of silence. In that space, you are finally truly allowed to exist without the need for constant correction. You may find that as you soften your grip, other parts of your body begin to relax as well. Notice your shoulders. Are they still braced, as if expecting a blow from the future? Let them drop. Let them melt into the support beneath you. Notice your jaw. Are you still clenching your teeth, trying to hold your story together through the sheer force of your bite? Let your tongue fall away from the roof of your mouth. Let your throat open. You are not being asked to defend your history tonight. You are only being asked to breathe into the stillness. There is a natural pace to your own healing that is much slower than the pace of your thoughts. You have been trying to sprint toward inner peace, thinking that if you just reached it, you could finally stop. But peace is not a destination. It is a quality of your awareness that is present even now, beneath the noise, beneath the grit, and beneath the habit of the stone. It is like the water at the bottom of the stream, deep and quiet, even while the surface is turbulent and fast. You can drop your awareness down into that depth whenever you feel the surface of your mind becoming too crowded. If the room around you feels too big or too empty, know that you are anchored by the simple physical reality of your own body. You are here. The floor is beneath you. The blankets are against your skin, and the air is moving through the space you occupy. You are not lost in the high pass. You are not at the mercy of the mountain winds. You are in a safe place, and you are being held by the same quiet forces that govern the movement of the tides and the growth of the trees. You do not need to do anything to earn this rest. You do not need to prove that you have been working hard enough to deserve the quiet. If you are feeling guilty for resting, notice that guilt. It is just another sharp edge on a stone you have picked up. See it clearly. See that it is a habit of the mind, a relic of a time when you believed that you had to be hard on yourself to be safe. You can set that stone down too. You can let the stream have the guilt, the shame, and the fear of being unproductive. They are heavy, and they are not yours to carry anymore. They are just objects that have become weathered and worn, and it is time to return them to the river. You are becoming aware of a different kind of strength, one that does not come from the grinding of the self. It comes from the ability to witness your own experience without adding to it. When you feel a surge of anxiety, instead of picking up the sand, you can just label it. You can say to yourself, this is the feeling of urgency. This is the sensation of fear. By naming it, you create a tiny bridge between you and the emotion. You are no longer the emotion. You are the one who is noticing the emotion. You are the one who is sitting by the stream, watching the water flow. This practice is the beginning of a long, slow change. It will not happen all at once, and it will not be complete by morning. That is the beauty of it. You are not a project. You are a process. You are a life that is still unfolding. Every time you remember to stop the friction, you are teaching your nervous system that it is safe to be still. You are teaching your heart that it is safe to trust the river. This is the work of a lifetime, and there is no rush. There is only this night, this breath, and the gentle, persistent unfolding of your own peace. If you find that your attention has drifted away, that you are back on the mountain, worrying about the stones you have left behind, gently bring yourself back. You do not need to judge yourself for the wandering. The mind is designed to wander. It is its nature. When you notice that you have left the stream, just bring your attention back to the breath. back to the sensation of the body, and back to the quiet resolve to set the stone down. Each return is a victory. Each return is an act of kindness. You are building a home in the silence, one return at a time. Imagine as you lie here that the room is filled with a soft, cool light that emanates from the stillness itself. It is a light that does not ask questions. It is a light that does not demand answers. It is a light that simply allows you to be exactly who you are, without any need for polish or preparation. You can bask in this light. You can let it sink into your skin, into your muscles, and into the very cells of your body. You are not being graded. You are not being evaluated. You are simply being held by the night, and you are finally free to let the day dissolve. Take one more deep breath, and as you do, imagine that all the tension you have been holding in your chest, all the urgency you have been carrying for tomorrow, is being gathered up by the current. Feel it moving out of you, through your limbs, and out into the vast, dark space of the night. You are emptying out. You are becoming as clear as the water in the stream. You are ready to move deeper into the night, deeper into the truth of your own worth, and deeper into the quiet that has been waiting for you all along. You do not need to go anywhere else to find it. It is right here, beneath the surface of the stones, in the deep, steady heart of the river. Years after the stonecutter had left his high pass, another traveler found herself in a small, remote village on the edge of the lowlands. Her name was Hana, and she was a woman whose life had become a series of frayed threads. She was a weaver of tapestries, a woman who for decades had taken pride in the seamlessness of her work. But a great tragedy had struck her family, leaving a tear in her life that she felt she could never mend. She sat at her loom from dawn until long after the candles had burned low, obsessively sewing over the same section of the weaving, trying to hide the gap, trying to force the pattern to look as if nothing had ever been torn. The fabric had become thick, heavy, and brittle under her frantic needles. It was no longer a beautiful, flexible piece of art. It was a stiff, armored shield that she wore against the world. She believed that if she could just weave over the history of the loss enough times, she would eventually convince herself that it had not happened. But every thread she added only made the distortion more visible, and every hour she spent at the loom deepened the ache in her heart. She was a woman drowning in her own attempt to protect herself from the reality of her own history. There was an old temple at the edge of the village, kept by a nun named Jiro. Jiro was known for her silence, and for the way she tended to the temple garden, which was not a place of flowers, but a place of weathered, lichen-covered bark and moss. One afternoon, Hannah, driven by an exhaustion so profound she could barely stand, walked to the temple. She carried her ruined tapestry wrapped in a cloth, intending to ask the nun for a way to fix the pattern, a way to make it whole again. She found Jiro sitting on a low wooden bench, holding a small, frayed, and ancient-looking wool robe. Jiro was not mending the robe. She was simply sitting with it, watching the way the light from the setting sun caught the loose threads. Hannah approached and bowed, her hands trembling as she set the wrapped tapestry on the ground. She told the nun about her work, about the tear, and about the years she had spent trying to weave over the tragedy until the pattern made sense again. She spoke of her fear that if she stopped mending, the hole would swallow her whole. She waited for the nun to tell her what stitch to use, or what pattern would hide the damage best. Jiro did not look at the tapestry. She continued to look at the frayed robe in her lap. She reached out and pulled on one of the loose threads, letting the fabric pull apart just a little bit more. Hannah gasped, a sound of genuine alarm. She had spent a lifetime trying to prevent exactly that kind of unraveling. Jiro looked up at her then, her eyes clear and untroubled. She spoke in a voice that was as dry and soft as the leaves on the temple floor. She said, "The thread is not the damage. The thread is the history of the garment. If you pull it out, you lose the story of how it was made." Hannah did not understand. She looked at the tapestry she had spent so long trying to fix, and then she looked at the robe in the nun's hands. Jiro stood up and walked over to the bench where Hana sat. She placed the robe into Hana's lap. She told her to look at the places where the wool had been worn thin, and to look at the places where it had been darned and patched over the years. Hannah saw that it was not a perfect garment. It was a map of a life lived. It was a record of cold nights, of long journeys, and of accidental tears. It was beautiful precisely because it had been worn damaged, and repaired. Jiro then reached down and picked up the tapestry Hannah had brought. She did not open the cloth to look at the work. She simply weighed the bundle in her hands, feeling its heaviness, feeling its stiff and brittle density. She said, "You have been trying to weave a blanket of forgetting, but memory is not a defect to be covered. It is the fiber of your life. When you try to deny the tear, you turn your entire life into a cage. If you stop trying to hide the gap, you might find that the space is not a void. It is a place where you can finally breathe." Hannah sat there, the weight of the robe in her lap, and the weight of the tapestry on the ground. She felt a sudden, sharp, and terrifying temptation to stop. She felt the impulse to reach for her needle and begin again, to hide the fraying edges of her own soul. But she looked at the nun's hands, which were relaxed, open, and still she looked at the garden, where the trees grew in their own twisted, imperfect ways, reaching for the light without the need to be straight or tall or perfectly formed. She realized, with a clarity that made her chest tighten, that she had been spending her life fighting the wrong battle. She didn't fix the tapestry that day. She didn't return to her loom to sew over the tear. Instead, she did something she had not done in years. She stood up, left the bundle on the bench, and walked out into the temple garden. She didn't walk with a purpose. She didn't walk to get somewhere. She walked to be present. She watched the way the wind moved through the branches of the old trees. She listened to the sound of her own feet on the mossy path. She felt the cool air against her skin. And for the first time, she felt the reality of her own existence without the filter of her labor. She realized that the tear in her life was not an ending. It was a change in the pattern. It was a space that allowed for something new to be woven, something that was not trying to be perfect, but something that was trying to be true. She didn't have to be the one who controlled the weaving. She only had to be the one who lived it. She walked back into the village as the moon began to rise, a pale, curved sliver in the dark. She looked at her own hands, still calloused from years of stitching, and she felt a sudden, unexpected wash of compassion for the woman she had been, the woman who had tried so hard to be strong, to be seamless, to be untouched. Hannah did not become a different person overnight. She did not find a magical way to remove the loss from her heart. But she did something subtle, and it changed everything. She stopped hiding. When someone asked her about her work, she no longer tried to pretend that the tapestry was seamless. She told them about the tear. She told them about how it happened. And she told them about how she had spent years trying to cover it up. And in the telling, she found that the tear was no longer a monster in the dark. It was just a part of her story. It was a place where the light could get in. She kept the tapestry, but she didn't work on it anymore. She hung it in her house, just as it was, with the gap, with the uneven threads, and with the history of her own struggle visible for anyone to see. She began to weave again, but she wove differently now. She used different threads, colors that were not meant to hide the past, but to honor the present. She wove with gaps, she wove with variations, and she wove with a sense of freedom that she had never known before. She was a weaver of life, and she finally understood that the beauty was not in the uniformity. The beauty was in the honesty of the thread. This is the deeper transformation we are talking about tonight. It is the movement from the need to hide to the willingness to reveal. It is the understanding that your life, with all its patches and all its frayed edges, is not a mistake that needs to be fixed. It is a work of art that is still in progress. The moment you stop trying to be seamless is the moment you become truly human. The moment you stop trying to be armored is the moment you become truly free. You do not need to be a finished product. You are allowed to be a process, a unfolding, and a living, breathing history. Look at your own life right now, from this place of quiet. What are the threads you have been trying to pull tight? What are the gaps you have been trying to hide? You might feel a surge of resistance as you think about them. That is the old habit of the weaver. That is the armor trying to reform. But you can choose to breathe into that resistance. You can choose to notice the tightness in your belly, the bracing in your shoulders, and you can let it soften. You can let the thread be loose for a moment. You can let the pattern be irregular. You can let yourself be exactly who you are, without any need to stitch over the parts of you that you think are broken. This takes a different kind of strength than the strength of the weaver who works until dawn. This is the strength of the one who knows how to put the needle down. This is the strength of the one who trusts that the pattern is already unfolding, even without their constant interference. When you stop fighting your own history, you stop wasting the energy that is needed for your own living. You begin to see that the things you thought were defects were actually the source of your depth, the source of your compassion, and the source of your own unique and irreplaceable beauty. You don't need to resolve your suffering tonight. You don't need to explain it to anyone, and you don't need to justify it to yourself. You only need to be willing to sit with it, to look at it, and to recognize that it is a part of the tapestry, not the enemy of the weaving. The night is long, and the silence is deep, and there is plenty of room for all the pieces of your life to exist at once. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to stop working. You are allowed to let the pattern be what it is. And you are allowed to trust that you are held by something much larger and much older than your own struggle. As you drift closer to sleep, imagine that all the threads of your day, the frayed, the knotted, the colorful, and the plain, are being gently collected by the night. You are not holding them anymore. They are resting. They are part of the landscape, part of the quiet, and part of the deep, unfolding dark. You are finished with the work. You are finished with the weaving. You are ready to let the pattern go, and to find your way into the rest that has been waiting for you, steady and sure, underneath all the noise you have been trying to manage. There is nothing left to prove. There is no pattern to perfect, and there is no reason to stay awake to hold it all together. You can finally let the thread fall loose. You have been working with the idea of your own history as a tapestry that was never meant to be seamless. But to truly let the needle fall, we must look at the invisible hand that keeps trying to pick it back up. Why is it so difficult to simply allow the tear to be a part of the pattern? Why does the mind insist that if we are not actively stitching over our past mistakes, we are somehow becoming undone? The answer lies in how we have learned to relate to the energy of discomfort. We are taught from a very early age that if we feel something jagged, we must immediately smooth it down. We are told that if we feel a hollow space, we must immediately fill it with explanation, justification, or performance. This is the central trap of the restless mind. We believe that we are the architects of our own character, and that if we let our guard down for even a single second, our true, flawed nature will be exposed and found wanting. So we build a structure of defense around our vulnerabilities. We rehearse the future, because we fear that if we are not prepared for every possible disaster, we will be crushed by the weight of the unknown. We replay the past because we fear that if we do not analyze every error, we will be doomed to repeat it. We seek the approval of others because we fear that if we do not present a finished, polished surface to the world, we will be cast out into the dark. This is not a sign of your moral failing. It is a sign of your survival instinct gone quiet and then turned loud. You have been trying to protect yourself from the reality of change. You have been trying to make the landscape of your life permanent, static, and predictable. But the mountain stream does not freeze just because you want it to be a solid path. The tapestry does not stay stiff just because you want to keep the hole hidden. The more you resist the natural movement of your own life, the more friction you create. And friction, as we have seen, is the heat that burns through your ability to be present. When you feel the itch to fix, to control, or to judge, you are experiencing the first wave of pain. This is the natural response to a life that is constantly shifting. Perhaps you have lost a sense of safety, or you have been hurt by someone you trusted, or you feel the heavy shadow of a mistake you cannot undo. That is the raw, cold wind of experience. It is real, it is uncomfortable. But then the mind adds the second wave of pain. This is the part that says I should not be feeling this way, or I am failing because I am still hurt, or I must find a way to make this go away right now. That second wave is the sand you are throwing into your own eyes. It is the extra struggle, the additional knot you tie in the thread, that keeps you tethered to the very thing you are trying to escape. You can learn to distinguish between these two layers. The first layer is the reality of being alive in a world that is not under your control. The second layer is the narrative of resistance. The Buddhist teachers often spoke of being struck by two arrows. The first arrow is the external event, the sharp prick of loss or disappointment. That is inevitable. We all get struck by these arrows. But the second arrow is the one we shoot into ourselves, the arrow of self-judgment, the arrow of why me, the arrow of I must do something to change this instantly. That second arrow is the one that causes the lingering infection. That second arrow is the one that keeps you awake. Peace does not come from preventing the first arrow from landing. You cannot stop the world from being unpredictable. You cannot stop people from changing, or life from unfolding in ways that sometimes leave a tear in your fabric. But you can learn to put down the bow. You can learn to stop reaching for that second arrow. When you feel the sting of the first experience, you can choose to meet it with kindness instead of critique. You can say to yourself, "This is painful, and that is all right. I am allowed to be hurt by this. I do not have to fix it, and I do not have to hide it. I only have to be present with it." This shift in relationship is the heart of true inner freedom. It is the realization that your suffering is not a command. It is not an identity. It is just an event. When you stop turning your pain into an identity, when you stop calling yourself a failure because you have failed, or a broken person because you have been damaged, the intensity of the feeling begins to change. It no longer has the power to define you. It is just a ripple in the stream. It is just a loose thread in the tapestry. It is something that is happening to you, but it is not who you are. You might feel the urge to push back against this. Your mind might tell you that if you don't judge your pain, you will be weak. It might tell you that if you don't stay vigilant, you will be caught off guard again. But this is the voice of the old weaver, the one who is exhausted from years of trying to hide the tear. You are not protecting yourself by being your own enemy. You are only exhausting your spirit. You are only drying out your own capacity to feel, to love, and to grow. The true strength is not in the armor. It is in the willingness to be vulnerable. It is in the courage to sit in the center of the change without needing to grasp for a solid surface. Consider the metaphor of the stream. When you resist the current, you are pushed harder against the rocks. You are bruised, you are battered, and you are tired. But when you relax into the flow, when you let your body go soft and allow the water to carry you, you find that the current is not your enemy, it is your vehicle. The things you are most afraid of, the uncertainty, the imperfections, the feeling of being incomplete, are the very things that give your life its unique, beautiful, and authentic form. If you were not a being who could feel, you would not be a being who could heal. You do not need to be any other version of yourself than the one who is feeling this right now. You are not meant to be a flawless piece of work. You are a living thing. And living things are messy, they are frayed, and they are constantly in the process of becoming something new. If you could see your life from the perspective of the mountain, you would see that your struggles are just small ripples in a vast, deep water. You would see that the tear you are so worried about is actually a window. You would see that the time you spent trying to fix yourself was time spent in the dark, and that the light is finally ready for you to step into it. As you reflect on this, notice where the tension lives in your body. Is it in the pit of your stomach? Is it in the tightness of your chest? Is it in the way you hold your breath as you listen? You can let that tension be there without needing to change it. You can notice it, and then you can offer it a little bit of space. You can say to that tightness, "I see you. I know you are trying to keep me safe, but we can let go now. We can be here in this quiet, without needing to perform, without needing to produce, and without needing to justify our existence to anyone." This is the deepest form of rest. It is the rest that comes when the inner judge finally decides to take a nap. You have been carrying this judge for a lifetime, and it has been doing a very poor job of keeping you safe. It has only been keeping you small. It has only been keeping you trapped in the cycle of friction and resistance. But tonight, you are off duty. The workbench is locked, the needle is set down, and the tapestry is simply resting in the dark, exactly as it is. It is complete, even with the hole, even with the fraying, even with the history of the struggle. It is enough. Maybe you are still tempted to worry about tomorrow. You might think, but if I stop fixing, how will I handle the challenges I face when the sun comes up? But look at how you have already survived every single challenge you have ever faced. You didn't survive because you were perfect. You survived because you were present. You survived because you were adaptable. You survived because you were a part of the world. and the world held you in its current. Even when you didn't know how to swim, you will have what you need tomorrow, not because you spent tonight grinding your mind into a fine, sharp powder, but because you spent tonight learning how to be soft. There is a natural intelligence in you that is far deeper than the analytical mind. It is the intelligence that knows how to heal a cut, how to breathe in your sleep, and how to grow toward the light. It is the intelligence that understands that the tear is just a part of the pattern, and that the pattern is always growing. You can trust that intelligence. You can let it lead the way. You can leave the work of being you to the one who knows how to do it best. And you can spend the rest of the night simply being the one who rests. The darkness is soft, and it is vast, and it has no expectations of you at all. You are finally, after so much long and difficult work, allowed to be empty. You are allowed to be still. You are allowed to be whole, in your own beautiful, irregular, and unfolding way. The stillness you have found in this space is not a sanctuary separate from your life. It is the very ground upon which your life is built. Often, we imagine that wisdom is something we must carry into the world like a heavy lantern, shielding it from the winds of our daily routines. But the practice of setting the stone down is meant for the moments when the phone screen lights up with a message you have been dreading, or when the silence of the night feels like a mirror reflecting your own sense of falling behind. These are not interruptions to your practice. They are the actual practice itself. When you feel that sudden, sharp pull of anxiety while waiting for a response, or when you find your mind scrolling through the archives of a mistake made years ago, you are standing at the bank of the stream. You are holding the stone of your own history, and you are tempted to begin the grinding again. In those moments, you can choose to witness the impulse rather than follow it. You might notice the tightening in your chest as the thought arises, a sensation of needing to know the outcome, needing to fix the timeline, or needing to justify your worth. Instead of reaching for the sand, you can simply notice that the urge to polish the past is present. You can breathe into the feeling of the uncertainty. You can say to yourself, I feel the need to solve this, but I do not have to act on it. You can allow the feeling to be there without letting it become the captain of your ship. This is not about being passive or indifferent. It is about reclaiming your agency from the habits of your own fear. Consider the times when you feel like you are not enough, or that your internal tapestry is too frayed to be shared with others. We often smile to the world while feeling the heavy, cold weight of our own doubt. We think that if we show the tear, we will be judged or found lacking. But when you move through your day with the quiet knowledge that your history is your own, you stop looking for external validation to prove your completeness. You can walk into a room, you can interact with a colleague, you can listen to a friend, all while holding the truth of your own imperfections with a soft, steady hand. You do not have to perform. You do not have to be seamless. You can be present, you can be real, and you can be imperfect, and that is more than enough. Think of the moments when you lie awake, replaying a conversation where you think you should have been more articulate, more confident, or more kind. The mind tells you that if you just reweave that section, you will feel better. But that is the old, brittle tapestry calling to you. You can listen to the story the mind is telling, and you can recognize it for what it is. It is just a story. It is not the truth. It is not a command. It is just a pattern you have run 1,000 times before. You can choose to step away from the loom. You can acknowledge the story, and then turn your attention to the feeling of the blankets against your skin, the cool air in the room, or the sound of the wind outside. You can choose to rest in the reality of the present, rather than the construction of your own regret. You might wonder if this path of softness will make you lazy or prone to making the same mistakes. But notice how much energy you have been wasting on the grind. When you stop trying to justify your existence, you find an abundance of energy for your actual living. You are no longer exhausted by the effort of holding your life together. You are no longer drained by the attempt to be a version of yourself that never existed. You become a person who can show up for the difficult moments because you are no longer trying to escape them. You can show up for your own life with all its gaps and all its beauty because you are finally home within yourself. There will be days when the stream feels like a torrent and you find yourself picking up the stones again. Do not judge this. Do not label yourself as having failed. The mountain stream has its seasons of flood, and you have your seasons of struggle. When you find your hands are busy again, simply notice that you have forgotten the lesson for a moment. Take a breath, smile at your own human struggle, and put the stone down again. The water is still there. The current is still moving. The stillness is still waiting for you to return to it. This is the practice of a lifetime, not a test to be passed or failed. It is a slow, rhythmic return to your own capacity for being at ease. When you feel the fear of the future creeping into your quiet moments, remember that the future is just another version of the past you are trying to rewrite. We use our imagination to build scaffolds for a tomorrow that does not yet exist, trying to ensure that we will be safe, that we will be liked, that we will be successful. But this is just another way of trying to polish the rock before it has even been pulled from the earth. You can let the future stay in the future. You can let the present have its own, complete, and sufficient space. If you are standing in your kitchen, if you are sitting on your bus, if you are folding your laundry, just be there. Feel the texture of the task. Feel the temperature of the air. Be the one who is truly present, and let the rest of the world's noise fade into the background of your own steady awareness. You might feel a sense of guilt when you rest. You might feel that if you are not doing something to earn your peace, you are wasting your time. But rest is not a reward you receive for being good. Rest is a fundamental requirement of your own nature. The mountain does not apologize for standing still. The river does not feel guilty for flowing. You are a part of this natural order. You are allowed to be still. You are allowed to stop your labor. You are allowed to let the night be the container for your own unfolding. There is a deep dignity in the way you are choosing to handle your own heart tonight. You are not choosing the easy way of denial. You are choosing the brave way of observation. You are choosing to look at your frayed threads and see them as part of the beauty. You are choosing to look at your jagged stones and let them sink into the depths of the river. This is the work of a person who is truly alive. This is the work of a person who is finally learning how to weave a life that is honest, a life that is soft, and a life that is free. As you prepare to move into the final stages of the night, know that you have done enough. You have been present. You have been honest. You have been willing to look at the parts of yourself you usually leave in the dark. And because of that, the night will hold you differently. It will feel like a softer blanket, a deeper silence, and a more welcoming space for your own existence. You do not need to do anything more. You do not need to prepare for anything else. You only need to let the rhythm of your own breathing carry you deeper into the quiet. The patterns of your life will continue to move. They will continue to shift, and they will continue to tear and to heal. But you are no longer the one who is desperately trying to hold the structure together. You are the one who is observing the pattern, and you are the one who is resting within the space that the pattern creates. You are the space, you are the quiet, you are the witness to the beauty of it all. And in that recognition, you are already home. You are stepping into a state where the work of the day is a memory, and the worries of tomorrow are a dream. You are in the heart of the present moment, and there is nowhere else you need to be. You are safe. You are held by the night. You are allowed to be exactly as you are, and that is the most perfect way you can be. Let the weight of the world drift away, and let the peace of the stream become the rhythm of your sleep. You are finally, truly letting go. The work of the weaver is finished. The loom in your mind, which has been clicking and clacking through the long hours of the day, is finally slowing its rhythm. You can feel the heavy wooden frame of your thoughts coming to a halt. The tension of the warp and the weft, those threads of worry and expectation you have kept so tight, are beginning to slacken. You are no longer responsible for the pattern. You are no longer responsible for hiding the tear. The tapestry of your life, with all its beautiful irregularities, is being gathered up by the darkness, and it is being folded away safely and softly into the quiet of the night. Imagine the room around you filling with a gentle, violet twilight. It is a light that does not demand you see anything, nor does it ask you to explain your presence. It simply surrounds you, like the space between the threads of a cloth. Your body is growing heavy, sinking into the support of your bed, and the weight of your own existence is no longer a burden you have to carry. It is just a shape in the dark, supported by the earth, held by the gravity of this moment. You can let your eyelids feel heavy, not because you are trying to close them, but because there is nothing left in this world that requires your vigilance. Every concern you have been holding, every memory you have been polishing, and every future you have been trying to weave is slipping from your fingers. They are not disappearing. They are simply moving back into the pool of the universal, back into the stream where they belong. You are finally, after so much long and difficult labor, allowed to be empty. You are allowed to be still. You are allowed to be unmade. Think of the river once more, deep and cold and constant. It is moving through the valley of your subconscious, carrying away the debris of the day, washing the stones of your history until they are smooth, until they are silent, until they are merely part of the earth. You are the riverbank, and you are the water, and you are the stones beneath the current. There is no separation between you and the peace you have been searching for. You have arrived at the place where the weaving stops, and where the weaver can finally sleep. Feel the breath moving in and out of your chest, a soft, slow tide. Each inhale brings you closer to the deep, dark heart of the night. Each exhale releases the last lingering tension in your jaw, your shoulders, and your hands. You are letting go of the needle. You are letting go of the thread. You are letting go of the need to be a finished, perfect work. You are enough, exactly as you are, in this moment of quiet, in this moment of rest, in this moment of being. The night is vast and it is kind. It holds you in a way that no effort or labor ever could. It does not ask for your stories. It does not ask for your explanations. It does not require you to be anything other than a breath, a pulse, a heartbeat in the dark. You are home, you are here, and the quiet that you have been looking for, the peace that you thought was waiting somewhere ahead of you, has been here all along, breathing beneath the surface of everything you tried to change. Close your eyes if you haven't already. Let the last remnants of the day fall away like dry leaves from a tree. You do not need to solve the pattern of your life tonight. You do not need to reconcile the threads. You only need to be carried by the deep, steady rhythm of the world as it turns toward the dawn. The light will return when it is time. The loom will wait for you. But for now, the work is done, and the silence is yours. What if the pattern you were so desperate to fix was always, from the very beginning, a masterpiece of light and shadow?